This is Marcia Pearlstein with the Port Townsend Film Institute interviewing Pamela Roberts, the director of The Kawamotos of Lake Leland, and it's a real pleasure. Pamela was one of the first people I met this weekend, but I met her film a long time ago as one of the reviewers who just fell in love with the poignancy, the loveliness, and the depth of your story, so I am really pleased to be with you.
Thank you.
Tell the listener, the audience, what kind of got you into this story, and what made you decide to go from being a high school principal to a film director?
Yeah. Well, when I left being a principal and became a faculty member with Washington State University, I was hired as a youth development specialist for the entire county of Jefferson County on the Olympic Peninsula. And you know, I always saw technology education as kind of a hole in education. It's difficult to find people who can both do a lot of technological things and also impart it to young people and get them engaged with it. So as I came into the 4-H program in Jefferson County and assessed, you know, where I could make the biggest contribution as a teacher, not just as an administrator, that's really what I zeroed in on. And it was around that time that they were just developing the mechanisms on the internet so that you could stream video on the internet. And in fact, my stepson was one of the programmers. He works in Kirkland, was actually helping program and create the machines that allowed that streaming to occur. So for our family, it was sort of fun to have me on the outside doing an implementation piece in creating videos and him actually helping create the hardware and the software that allowed it to happen. But you know, we just dove in with the kids here, and I started actually piloted some video things with two teenagers. One was a teenager, Daniel Bryant from Port Townsend, who was a really great cameraman, and he loved the technology aspect. And Barbara Svetich was an on-camera talent from Quilcene. And so we started with just the two of them to start piloting the use of this media online. And one thing led to another, and literally hundreds of youth were exposed to video production, and they acted as reporters and editors and camera people. And we were flown all over the country by the National 4-H office out of Washington, D.C. So that's what got me into video production. I came from a fairly poor family, Marcia. I really didn't ever have a camera, a real camera in my hands. Maybe I would buy a disposable camera if I took a trip or something. But I literally did not know how to turn a camera on when I started as a faculty member with WSU.
Wow.
Yes.
You've come a long way, baby.
Definitely have, and I think it's fun to share that with kids, is that don't be afraid. I was going off to a club meeting, and I was moved with each of these different 4-H clubs that I would attend with the volunteer adults that were running these clubs. They were so well trained and expert in their fields. And I just thought, this is such a shame, all of this activities going on, and people have so little idea about what's happening. I wish I could get that story out. I wish that the whole world could be as privileged as I am going to see these things. And that's when I realized, hey, if I videotape this stuff and get it on the internet, then I can show it. And I fortunately had a colleague, as I was leaving to go watch some kids shoot off a potato cannon that they had designed with an engineer. He said, why don't you take a video camera? And I said, well, I don't even know how to turn it on. He goes, you just push this button, you know, and just point it, and it'll work, you know. So I literally did that first video. It was called Product Design. You can still see it on YouTube. It's still one of my favorite videos.
You know, that's the two-edged thing of technology. I mourn for history because of all the emails that get deleted. And in the old days, there used to be letters that were preserved. And so we're losing history, but we're in a whole other way where we're getting better history through video and film and all of that. technology. So it really is two-edged. Well, let's move into this wonderful, wonderful, very special film that most of the folks that are going to see this interview have now seen at the film festival. How did you hook up with the Kawamotos?
Yeah. Well, I knew about Ray Kawamoto because I used to be the principal of the Quilcene High School. And Ray was the president of the Alumni Association as a graduate of the Quilcene High School. So I knew about him. And so I drew on that knowledge when Jeanette Force, who's the director of the Port Townsend Film Festival, called me and asked if I would come cover an event that was happening at the Quilcene Community Center where the filmmaker who created the Cats of Mirakatani was showing her film. And I said to Jeanette, you know, this is so exciting that you're bringing this film to the town of Quilcene. And I would like to go one step further and reach out to a local Japanese family that we have here and see if there isn't a story that can be told there as well. Because the Cats of Mirakatani really talked about the impact of the internment camps on a man of Japanese origin who lived in New York City. So I called Ray Kawamoto. He was listed in the phone book and chased him down a little bit.
That generation, you can still find it a phone book.
Yeah.
With cell phones now, you can't find kids.
Indeed, yes, he has a landline. And he and his wife, Margie, have just been lovely. But Ray, I think initially was reluctant. And I did mention to him, you know, in my messages to him on his voicemail, that I was interested in capturing not only the family history, personal history, but also any kind of intersection that happened with the family during the internment process. And needless to say, that is a very sensitive topic. And many Japanese families have been reluctant to really speak out about this. And I think we're getting now enough distance from it that they're starting to realize that it's a piece of their history that should be shared. And they've had the time to reflect on what the impact has been. And it's time to sort of take the veil off of that. So Ray consented to being interviewed. I, of course, prepared for the interview. I had segments of questions that I wanted to ask him. I did a lot of research about the internment camps, and there were certain topics I wanted to get at. But I also put myself in the mindset of just being a member of a family. And what if it was me and I was going to be sharing about my family history, so maybe I was trying to share something that would be important for my grandchild, that kind of thing. So I came well prepared with a series of questions that would get at the family history. And in fact, that's where I started the conversation with Ray. That was a much more comfortable place to start the conversation. So I asked Ray a lot about how did the family come to Quilcene. They were a pioneer family around the 1900s and really delved into the farming and all kinds of things. I knew at the time that I was quizzing him on these topics that they most likely would not make it into the film, but I needed to get him conversing with me and get him at ease talking with me and joking with me. I would rib him every once in a while about things and really got him so at ease that I think he forgot after maybe an hour that the camera was even on. And Ray became his true self at that point.
I think that's so important, that's what really touches many elderly people, the thought of giving a legacy to their grandchildren, getting the story out before it's too late. And when you start with the positive stories, it makes space for the underbelly and what came later.
Yes, it does.
And I think that's so important. And the local element is really important as well. And all of us have known families of one sort of or another that were impacted. My sister's closest friend's father was a conscientious objector that was thrown into Manzanar internment camp. That's lesser known that lots of non-Japanese people were interred as well. And it's really important because these stories will be lost if we don't get them now. So let me just say to people who haven't seen the film yet, and say to you again, that not only did you capture the essence of this man, his strength, his resilience, his ability to go on, but the cinematography is gorgeous. It's a very poignant, drawing film. It just draws you in to the story, and it really needs to be seen. The story needs to be told. I also want to note right now that for those local folks here that go to the Olympic Music Festival every year, that is on land of a displaced Japanese family that was also sent to the internment camp. And before that man died, the creator of the music festival met him, and they became friends over the years, and he got to see what happened with his land, and he got to tell his story to the guy that started the festival. So the more we open up and communicate with each other, the better the chances that this kind of a blight will not occur again.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, when you first start talking with somebody, even if they're a friend, even if they're somebody you know well, when you put them on camera, there's a very different dynamic that occurs. And people do not want to appear to be negative,
Right.
or to be victim-oriented or complainers, okay? So the question is, for me as a videographer, how do I get them to let go of that veneer of social grace, I guess you could call it, and to just be authentic, you know? And there was a point in that interview, it happened around the first hour, when I had gotten enough from Ray about his childhood and all kinds of positive things that I finally felt it was time, and I felt the body language was at ease, that I then said to him, so you were a member of a racial minority in a rural community that was predominantly white, and can you tell me about any things that happened, you know, with that in mind, that maybe were less comfortable, maybe created some tensions for you, right? And it was at that point that he shared, you know, as a very small child, he's going into the school, the public school, with his Japanese culture, drinking his soup, and becomes, you know, publicly corrected by a teacher in front of the entire class that that is not right, that he's to use a spoon. And, you know, that for me, it's not to blame the teacher. It's just that we unwittingly sometimes do things in our society. We have no idea the impact of what we're doing sometimes. And I hope by him sharing these little things that it can heighten the awareness of people to be more sensitive culturally.
Well, that's what makes you an ideal videographer / filmmaker at this point, because you do have the sensitivity of an educator.
Yeah.
You kind of know something about timing. You know of the importance of getting to the underbelly, but in a way that allows the person to tell the story with just simplicity and honesty,
dignity,
and authenticity.
Yeah.
And I do think that's really so important. And so you've kind of really found a nice mix for yourself.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, it reminds me of, I do a lot of diversity training. I used to around the country in school climate, environment, bullying, all of that kind of stuff. And teachers innocently don't help enough because they don't have the tools. They don't have the training. They don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't even notice it and they're part of the problem, but sometimes they don't even know how to fix the problem. And the more tools we give them through videos and films such as yours, the more able they will be to become not part of the problem but part of the solution.
Well, I hope you're right. I hope it can be a bridge. You know, as an educator, and I've worked as a teacher and as a principal, But I've always immersed myself in other cultures. And my husband and I, we moved our family into the central area of the city in Seattle, you know, predominantly African-American neighborhood. I grew up in a very mixed neighborhood at the north end of McChord Air Force Base in Tacoma. So it was a highly diverse, you know, experience. But I just think that's so important for educators to get themselves out. If, let's say, if they've grown up in a white suburban kind of situation, that they take the risk to move into another area and be open to that. I've had moments when I was an administrator in a school that was predominantly Asian in West Seattle. And I lay it open to the kids. It's like, you know what, you're Laotian or you're Cambodian. Tell me about your culture. I know nothing, you know. And just lay it out there that you have an area that you need to learn about and they can help teach you, you know.
You know, I taught English as a second language in 1965 in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And I had kids of all backgrounds, Asian, Latino, you know, and the whole 9 yards. But what you're saying is really important. But there is a continuum. There are people like you that will seek out multiculturalism and will seek to put yourself in situations where you learn more. And then there are people that aren't even aware but would like to be. And in the comfort of their living room, they can watch your DVD.
Yeah.
And so that's why I still am a real believer in let people be where they are, but give them tools so that
Sure.
they can move a little bit further.
Yeah.
So let me segue a little bit now and find out what's your dream? What do you want to do next that's going to impact the world in the way that this film is impacting people?
Yeah, well, you know, I just was so thrilled with being able to capture Ray's story, his family's story, and in the context of this historical event. And I really started to think about other people who I know that have a similar historical context to their lives. I'm interested in doing one on my husband. My husband is a drummer and also a tree farmer. He is Jewish, and his owning of land was a major, you know, revelation for his family, because there's been so much fleeing in the Jewish history. So I want to explore that, the meaning that him owning this land has had for the family. And
After being of a nomadic tribe,
Yes.
being on terra firma.
yes.
So I do have to say we're getting ready to wind up. So
Sure.
what would you like to be sure the viewer knows about you, your film, your life, your future?
Well, I will continue to explore these kinds of individual stories within historical contexts. If they're interested in contacting me, I have a website and I have a company.
Let's hear the website.
It's LakeLelandVideoProductions.com, and that's the name of the business, Lake Leland Video Productions. And we live on Lake Leland in Quilcene, so I just thought it would be nice to localize it that way. And, you know, I'm just excited about pursuing a career, you know, as a
And-
videographer.
My final question to you, therefore, is let's make the link. As a local person
Yeah.
getting plunged into a new world a little bit, do you have anything you want to say about the Port Townsend Film
Absolutely.
Institute and the Port Townsend Film Festival?
Well, I'd like to thank Jeanette Force, first of all, for encouraging me to enter my film and encouraging me to pursue this story of the Kawamotos of Lake Leland. And I think it's a wonderful thing. The film festival brings videographers together. We're able to meet and share ideas and look at each other's current work. And I also appreciate the way I've been treated here at the festival. They really vet the filmmakers, and you feel appreciated in a very big way by the volunteers and by the whole setup of this festival. And so it's been a really incredible experience, and I love Bruce Dern and listening to him share stories, you know, about what he's been doing. So I just look forward to offering my next film and getting it done soon, you know.
And we look forward to having it. And on behalf of the film festival, which I don't know if I can say that or not, but I will anyway because that's who I am. We really enjoy nurturing filmmakers because you give us so much. We want to give back in some small way, and that's the spirit of this festival. Thank you, Pam Roberts,
Marcia.
for bringing us the Kawamotos of Lake Leland and your own essence and spirit today.
Thank you very much.